My name is Robert Orlek. I'm the nephew of Lieutenant Joseph Orlek, who the ship was named for. Lieutenant Orlek was the son of a Russian immigrant who came to the United States in 1904, and Lieutenant Orlek or Joe Orlek was born in 1906. They were a poor family. The father was into the scrap metal business. Joe, at the age of 18, enlisted in the Navy and kept re-enlisting, and finally at the age of 37 got his first command, which is aboard the USS Nauset AT-89. He'd been involved in sea rescues in the past. He was into boxing, was a boxing champion, and very small guy, but apparently you know, somebody that was really destined to you know, to do wonderful things. And he got his first command in the invasion of Salerno in 1943. It was a German bomb that was dropped from a high that hit his ship and killed many of the men, and there was fire aboard the ship, and he took charge of the fire control, got the fires put out, and eventually got off his survivors off onto another ship, and Joe went off as well. And he then was out of harm's way, except the ship then righted itself. This was a brand new ship, and they figured that they might be able to salvage her. So he and his first mate went back aboard to receive lines so they could tow it, and the ship hit a mine, and he went down with the ship. And about several months later, it was decided to name this destroyer the USS ORLECK DD 886 in his name. The ship was commissioned to last, they generally last about 10 years. It served for 19 years until at the point where the Navy was needing other equipment, and so they either had to develop new ships or do something. So what they did is they cut the superstructure off of it, rebuilt the ship to handle other weapons, and the ship went on to serve until 1982. She served in the end of World War II in Korea, where she was the initiator of the train busters, in the Vietnam. She was Top Gun. She fired over 11,000 rounds of ammunition and supported ground troops, and had a tremendous record. In 1982, after the filming of The Winds of War, in which she was starred in with Robert Mitchum, she was decommissioned and given to the Turkish Navy, and she went to Turkey, was there for 16 years, served as a flag, had been in Operation Desert Storm. And I just want to tell a little bit of a story about a Marine. His name is Major Mac McLaughlin from Randolph, my friend, who I knew well before we even talked about Orlek. And Mac went out to Tacoma in 1982 and got aboard the ship and got some memorabilia. He came back to little Randolph, Vermont, and we have a weekly newspaper there. And Mac called the editor, got him up to our house, or got up to his house. He had a big American flag up. He got in his Marine uniform. This is, you know, right now he's 97 years old, so he was even old then. And they took a picture of him giving it to me. I had never seen the ship, had never been aboard it. And there was a fellow coming through town by the name of Charlie Boothroyd, who was heading up the restoration of the USS Kennedy in Fall River, Massachusetts. He saw the newspaper, called me and said, why isn't, you know, why aren't you involved in doing something with these ships, with your uncle being named for that ship? I said, I don't know, nobody's ever asked me. He said, well, I'm asking you, why don't you come down to Fall River? So went down to Fall River with my son, and we started working on the restoration of the ship, and it was really a lot of fun. And I joined Tin Can Sailors, which is a organization of men who served on tin cans. And there are also other people I never served on a tin can, but the first edition of the first newsletter I got, there was a letter in there from Phil Klotz saying, why isn't there a reunion group for the USS Orlek? So I called him, I said, well, I don't know, let's start one. So we started it, started looking for shipmates. We found 2,200 of them over a period of time. And in 1993, we held our first reunion, and that was in San Antonio. We had 155 in attendance, and I've been doing reunions for them ever since. And we've gone to you know, Hawaii, we've been up in Portland, Maine, we've been to Tacoma, we've been to San Antonio, we've been to Branson and Newport, Rhode Island, we've been all over Wilmington, North Carolina. We have wonderful reunions. In Orange, Texas, where the ship was built, we had 470 people registered for that reunion, the largest such reunion in American history. Well, in any event, I'd like to go back a little bit to the time when the ship was decommissioned in Turkey. Mac also, prior to that time, he went over to Turkey, and this is his second trip looking for the ship, and he was on an elder hostel program. And he left his wife in Europe, in Istanbul, gets on a bus, and heads all the way across to the Black Sea, gets aboard the ship, gets to know the men on the ship. They take him home for dinner, these Turks did. He then introduced the XO of the ship to me. We become close friends, and for the next number of years, we communicated on a regular basis from there to here, talking about how we were going to preserve the ship in its future, and possibly as a museum. But we couldn't talk about it. He didn't think it was right to talk about it when it was an active ship. But at the time then, when it came to the decommissioning in 1998, they brought me to Turkey and brought my wife to Turkey, and we were at the decommissioning. And it was a beautiful ceremony in which the ship was lined up with a lot of other ships, and they came in with a tug. They took her away, and it was symbolic of her being taken out of service. But just prior to them doing that, the last crew of the ship came off the ship and painted out her numbers, because it was, she's taken out of service, she possibly would rust and would be embarrassed, and they felt a pride towards her. And so it was a very moving time, and they took, at the end of that service, which there was an awful lot of things I could talk about that, which I won't, they did want to save her as a museum. But we went all around Turkey. We talked to a lot of businessmen, but there wasn't sufficient money to do that. So at the point that we were at, I went back to the United States, and I sent out an SOS saying the ship was going to be scrapped, and there was someone that heard about that. And they heard that there was a riverfront development project going on in Orange, Texas, in the city where she was built. And they contacted them. They were interested. They got their representative to contact the Turks, and the Turkish Navy denied their request for the ship. They wanted to bring her back to be a museum. They knew I'd been over there. They called me and asked me to represent Orange, Texas, and I called my friend, who had developed through the friendship with Major Mac had brought to my attention, and we'd become friends. He was now the aide to the admiral who handled the decommissioning service over there. His name was İlhami Erdil. And İlhami Erdil had now become the commander-in-chief of the Turkish Navy. He was the most powerful military man in Turkey. And I'd spent time with him, smoked cigars with him, and talked about ships. And I asked my friend if there was any likelihood that we could get the ship for Orange, Texas. And he said, I'll ask my boss. And he asked his boss, and his boss said, if Bob asks for the ship, I'll consider giving it to him. So he asked me to send an official request, and I did through the naval attaché in Washington. And within about 2 weeks, I got a very simple message on a flag piece of paper that said, your request has been deemed appropriate. And they gave me a destroyer, and we ended up getting her back to the United States. And that's kind of the story that, unlikely that a ship would be brought into this situation, but she's in Lake Charles right now, and she's serving as a museum there. So I just wanted to get that down, and I appreciate having the opportunity to do it.